Guys, I hope you're well. You've got Mr. Everything English, and today guys we are going to be completing paper 2 question 3. Now before you begin this particular video, if you have not watched the video on paper 2 question 1 and paper 2 question 2, go watch those videos first and then come back and continue with this video. Now we are working through an exam paper. Where's my sheets? Guys, we are working through an exam paper. The exam paper, you will find it in the description, the insert and the question paper. Do pull it up on your screens and do follow me as I go along. Alright guys, let's begin. So guys, paper 2 question 3. This is one of my favorite questions. Why? Guys, this is the language question. This is the question where we look at language devices and words and phrases. Now, I am not going to be going over language devices because my previous video, the one before this one, I covered 25 language devices. So if you don't know what language devices are, pause, watch that, and then come back. I'm going to be teaching guys on the presumption that you all know enough language devices. Now, this question, guys, is a 12-mark question. Now, for this particular question, you are aiming to produce 3 detailed paragraphs. So it's a 12-mark question and you are looking to produce 3 detailed paragraphs. And you are approximately looking to spend about 14 minutes on this particular question. So recap, 3 paragraphs, 12 marks. I don't know why I'm doing that. 3 paragraphs, guys, 12 marks and approximately 14 minutes. And we are analyzing language. Now, do we do a peel paragraph? Do we do a pea paragraph? Do we do a potato paragraph? Do we do a pebble paragraph? Do we do a Power Ranger paragraph? What kind of paragraphs do we do for this particular question? Guys, by now, if you've been following me long enough, you know that I recommend that there's only one paragraph that you should be doing, and that is a pretzel paragraph. Now guys, let's look at this particular question before we begin planning the answer on the board. The question, guys, says as follows. You now need to refer to source B from lines 8 to 18. Now, if this was a real exam, the first thing that I would do, guys, is please put a box around line 8 to 18. What this will do, guys, is this will ensure that you stick to those designating lines. Now, I know you must be thinking, sir, don't worry, I got this. I am never going to go out of the lines. I'm not a fool. Guys, I believe that. But when you're in your exam and you're under pressure and the clock is ticking and you've got so many things going on, mistakes happen. So to avoid that, just put a box around it just so you don't make that mistake. Once you've got a box around the extract, let's now read the question. How does the writer use language? When it says use language, it's meaning language devices. How does the writer use language to describe her first experience of cycling? How does the writer use language to describe her first experience of cycling? Let's read the extract. Riding on a track began to bore me as soon as I had learned to balance, but I remained steadily practicing until I could turn easily. Cut figures of 8, get on and off quickly on either side and stop without charging into unwelcome obstacles. This done, burning to try my fate in traffic and yet as nervous as a hare that feels the greyhound's breath, I launched my little bicycle early on one Sunday morning in July into the stormy oceans of Sloane Street. Let's pause there, guys. Let's go back a little bit, rewind. Where it says, as nervous as a hare, as nervous as a hare, the writer here has used a simile. Where it says, the stormy oceans of Sloane Street, here the writer has used a metaphor. And the writer has also used sibilance. Why is it sibilance? Stormy oceans of Sloane Street, SSS has been repeated. As nervous as a hare is a simile comparing two things in like or as. On my way, so guys, so far I've got 2 things. On my way to visit a sick friend who lived about 4 miles off. The streets were really very clear, but I shall never forget my terror. I shall never forget my terror. Guys, this is a hyperbole. I shall never forget my terror. A hyperbole is when you over-exaggerate. So at this point, the writer has over-exaggerated. I arrived in about 2 hours, streaming and exhausted, much more in need of assistance than the invalid I went to visit. Now guys, there's a few more language devices, but I'm not picking out everything. I'm just picking out some that we may talk about later on the board. Coming home, it was just as bad. I reached my house about 3 o'clock and went straight to bed, where I had my lunch in a state bordering on collapse. I only recount this adventure in order to encourage others who may have had the same experience as myself, but who may have not yet tried to conquer their nervousness. So guys, I went through the extract and I picked out a couple of language devices. I think I picked out 1, 2, 3, 4. I picked out 4 language devices. I highlighted them, done. Now I know what I will be talking about for my answer. Now on the board, let's plan our response. Okay guys, so now I have the pretzel paragraph on the board, and alongside it I have the quote that I have chosen. I have chosen a quote, "I shall never forget my terror." Now the question was talking about her first experience of riding a bike. Now based upon that quote, the point that I'm going to make guys is that her first experience was horrifying. That is going to be my point. Now there's one thing you must understand. This is just a plan. I'm going to bullet point some of the things that I may say about this particular quote. So here's my reference. Here's my point that it is horrifying. Then I pick up my technique. Guys, my technique here is hyperbole. Now before I do the explanation, I'm going to zoom in. What would I zoom into? In that quote, which word or phrase do I zoom into? I'm going to be zooming in to the adverb. What's the adverb here, guys? The adverb here is never. That is what I will be zooming into. So this is how the pretzel paragraph plan works. You put the pretzel down the side. The first thing you do is find your quote. Then you decide, what am I going to be saying about this quote? Then you decide, what can I find in the quote? A technique is first, which is a hyperbole. Then you want to zoom in. We zoom into a word or phrase, meaning a noun, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. In this particular quote, out of all these words, I think the adverb never is the most effective in showing how horrifying this experience was. It is something that can never ever be forgotten. Here and here, I will put my explanation in a second. My link, guys, my link will always be very simple. Therefore, as you can see, the first experience of riding the bike was extremely horrifying. In your link, you take your point back to the top. There's 2 reasons why we do this. Number 1, it shows you if you've been on task. If you can't link the ending of your paragraph to the opening of your paragraph, then you've probably gone off task. Number 2, you want to show the examiner that your paragraph hasn't strayed or you've not began waffling. It's like a straight line. At the beginning, I said it was horrifying. By the ending, I've proven it was horrifying. Now this leaves our 2 explanation. Now this is just a plan, so I'm not going to go crazy. Here guys, for the expression of never, I'm going to make a point guys. Nothing like this before. Nothing like this before. My point being that the character has never ever experienced something like this before. And guys, the last point is that it is unforgettable. Maybe I'm going to make the point, guys, they've been damaged. And my explanation will be that they've almost been scarred. They've almost been damaged for life. That's my explanation of the adverb never. Now put it all together in a hyperbole. I shall never forget my terror. I shall never forget my terror. What is the effect of the hyperbole? Guys, it makes this seem as though it is more than a bike ride. More than a bike ride. Guys, it seems as though this is more than a bike ride. It seems as though it was war. It seems as though it was some kind of battle. And I will explore that in my effect. But guys, as you can see, very straightforward. P-R-T-E-Z-E-L. First you pick your quote, then you decide what's your point, then you find your technique, then you find what you're going to zoom into, you find your brief explanations, and then you put the paragraph together. Once I put the paragraph together, this will make a lot more sense because that's where all the marks are. So, let me recap guys. You read the question. Once you've read the question, you pick out your evidence. Once you picked out your evidence, you plan a pretzel paragraph, and then you begin to write it out. Now, I will write out this paragraph for you guys so you have an idea on how to answer paper 2, question 3. Now, I said earlier, guys, you're looking at 14 minutes, so you're approximately spending 4.5 minutes per paragraph. All right, guys, let me turn the screens on so I can then produce this paragraph. So now that we've planned that paragraph, I will begin now writing the paragraph on the board, so please follow me as we go along. Now, the first part of the paragraph, guys, was the P. Now, for English language, your P is not important. So, guys, for English language, your P is not important. For English literature, your P is important. Alright, let's begin. In source B, the first experience of cycling is presented as horrifying. That's my point complete. This can be seen when the writer explains how I shall never forget my terror. That is my reference. The use of hyperbole, that is my technique. Alright guys, have a look at my paragraph. I've done the P. Guys, the P is complete. I have done the R. Why is it full stop here? I have done the R, guys. I have given my reference. And, one second guys, I have given my reference. And I have picked out my technique. So guys, the P, the R, and the T of my paragraph is now complete. Now I hope you can see, guys, this part of my paragraph, guys, I hope you can see that this part of my paragraph isn't the important part. This part of my paragraph isn't the important part. This is setting me up for the important part, and this is the explanation. But let's recap. In source B, the first experience of cycling is presented as horrifying. Basic, straightforward point. Then I give my evidence. This can be seen when the writer explains how I shall never forget my terror. Why have I not got quotation marks? Let me go add that, guys. It explains how I shall never forget my terror. The use of hyperbole. And then straight away I give my technique. I don't say stuff like, the writer has used many different language devices. One of these language devices, blah, 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 blah. None of that, none of that, none of that. We haven't got time. You get straight into it and you talk about the effect of the hyperbole. Now, let's begin, guys. The use of hyperbole, the use of the hyperbole is that it presents the bike ride as way more than a bike ride. The hyperbole juxtaposes, guys, here means contrast. The hyperbole juxtaposes a conventional bike ride. Instead, this ride is presented as somewhat of a war, somewhat of a battle, where the character is relieved to have simply survived this traumatic ordeal. Okay, then I'm going to stop there and end my effect. Now guys, I will be zooming in. Now I will begin my zooming in. Furthermore, this is further exemplified through the adverb never. Alright guys, and then I give my zooming in. And then I go back to my explanation. Then guys, I go back to my explanation. Furthermore, this is further reference to the adverb never. This adverb further heightens this horrific experience. It is unlike anything experienced by our character It's unlike anything experienced by a character before in their entire life. In addition, they appear to be damaged, scarred by this experience. As it shocked them to the core and haunts them till this day. Haunts them until this day. Alright, I'm going to end this paragraph soon. Let me end it now. Let's end it now, guys. Let's end the paragraph. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Let's go back to the point. Therefore, it is clear that the first experience of cycling is indeed extremely horrific. And guys, there we have it. There we have a complete pretzel paragraph for English language. Here we have our P, our R, our T, our E, Z, E, L. Now guys, I apologize if there are any spelling or grammar errors. I was typing pretty quick and I was not thinking about that stuff. Now, I haven't checked the timing. However, while I was talking, I think this paragraph probably took me about 5 minutes. Now, guys, I was talking while I was doing it. So I hope you guys can see it's definitely possible. Now, if you're running out of time, the part of the paragraph that you chop out is the zooming in. Just chop this straight out. Now let's recap my paragraph. In source B, the first experience of cycling is presented as horrifying. This can be seen when the writer explains how I shall never forget my terror. The use of hyperbole, I go describe the PRT, rush, rush, rush. And then you slow it down. Then you sit, I call it sitting. Then you sit and then you explain. The use of hyperbole is that it presents, I hate that. The use of hyperbole is that it presents the bike ride as way more than just a bike ride. The hyperbole juxtaposes a conventional bike ride. Instead, this ride is presented as somewhat of a war, somewhat of a battle, where the character is relieved to have simply survived this traumatic ordeal. Furthermore, this is further exemplified through the adverb never. This adverb further heightens this horrific experience. It is unlike anything experienced, not experienced, it should be experienced by a character in their entire life. In addition, they appear to be damaged, scarred by this experience, as it shocked them to the core and haunts them until this day. Therefore, it is clear that the first experience of cycling is indeed extremely horrific. And that is how you produce a pretzel paragraph for an English language exam. Guys, for those of you still watching, I hope you now have understood how you answer paper 2, question 3. Let's recap the steps one by one. Number 1, you read the question. Number 2, you put a box around the bit of the extract that you are picking your answers from. Number 3, you pick out the language devices that are relevant for the question. Number 4, you plan a pretzel paragraph just as we did on the board. Now this is what you do right now. By the time you do your exam, planning a pretzel paragraph should be like clockwork in your head. Number 5, you produce your pretzel paragraph. And that is it. You want to produce 3 of those paragraphs in approximately 15 minutes and you will smash your exam, guys. You want to spend the majority of the time on the 2 explanations. one after giving the technique, one after zooming in. And that is it. That is how you answer paper 2, question 3. Now, boys and girls, teachers, whoever's watching, as always, guys, thank you so much for your support. I hope you genuinely find these videos beneficial. I hope they improve your grades. If you haven't, guys, do subscribe. If you haven't, click thumbs up. If you're not following me on TikTok or Instagram, do check it out. Take care of yourselves, guys. Peace.